Hello, my name is Keaton Berry, and today we'll be talking about hemostasis. Hemostasis consists of three phases. The first phase is the vascular phase. In this phase, when a blood vessel is cut, the smooth muscle around the blood vessel contracts, and it's called the vascular spasm. The next phase is the platelet phase. During the platelet phase, platelets that are normally in the blood flow move towards the cut and stick to the cut. This is called platelet aggregation. Once these platelets stick to the cut, they release all these proteins listed here. But let's focus on clotting factors. So, as you notice, these platelets did not stick. Why? Well, your liver makes the clotting factors, and in the absence of potassium, the liver cannot create the correct clotting factors, and the platelets can't stick, so the cut will not be sealed. If that's not the case and you're fine, then the platelet plug will be formed. The last phase is the coagulation phase. In the coagulation phase, you have two pathways. The first one is extrinsic, the second one is intrinsic. Notice extrinsic happens outside the blood cell, and intrinsic happens on the inside of the blood cell. Both of these pathways then come together to form the common pathway. The extrinsic pathway. So when the blood cell is damaged, it releases a tissue factor. This tissue factor can also be called thromboplastin or factor 3. So this tissue factor, along with factor 7 and the calcium ion, take the inactive form of factor 10 and make it to the active form of factor 10. Factor 10 is also the beginning to the common pathway. Then we have the intrinsic pathway. So in this pathway, there's a series of steps here that will eventually transform factor 10 to the active form of factor 10. So the platelets release factor 12. This factor converts the inactive form of factor 11 to the active form of factor 11. The active form of factor 11 converts the inactive form of factor 9 to the active form of factor 9. And then the active form of factor 9, along with calcium ions and the platelet factor 3, convert the inactive form of factor 8 to the active form of factor 8. Once factor 8 is activated, it will then convert factor 10 to the active form of factor 10. So here we have the common pathway where both the extrinsic and intrinsic factors meet, or pathways meet. Here we shows factor 10 converted to the active form of factor 10, and then the active form of factor 10 converts prothrombin to thrombin with the help of prothrombinase and the calcium ion. Thrombin then converts fibrinogen to fibrin, and fibrin with the help of, again, another calcium ion and factor 13 make a blood clot. So here's the final blood clot. Again, you have the extrinsic pathway and the intrinsic pathway combining to the common pathway. At the end of the common pathway, the blood clot is formed. Here you see the fibrin strands and the platelets. Once the platelets are settled with the fibrin strands, the platelets then contract, which is called a clot retraction. Then this is the end of the hemostasis. The end.